Okay. So yeah, I'm just gonna jump right into the question of what does being American mean to you?
Is it recording?
Yeah. Are you okay with me editing and like?
My name is Colin Sherrod. I'm 22. Recently graduated from Michigan State University, currently working a full-time job. I was born in California. I was there for the first 9, 10-ish years of my life, and then I moved to Michigan. I've been here ever since. I'm half Japanese. My mom is Japanese and my dad is white. The standard for American families, or at least as portrayed in our media and I guess in life around us, is a atomic white family, more or less. So being American, what it means to me, honestly, it's not every day that I really consider myself like an American. When I think of my identity and who I am, a lot of things do come into the equation, but being American isn't really something I consider very much. Whether that really just be ignorance or a sign of virtue, I'm not sure. But it's not really anything I consider personally. But to be an American, I believe, if you want to be, I guess, a, in my definition, a good American, is somebody that upholds the values that truly are really important in this country. Everyone's created equal. You have freedom to do as you please, to some extent. It should be a place where everyone should be included. There's no question based off of your background, etc. Everyone has a place to be.
Do you feel like you're included, or your identity kind of fits with this?
Being that I came from a mixed background where I had partially that culture that my dad was brought up in, and also a completely different side from my mom, I didn't really connect with that identity or the American dream as much. Therefore, I guess my views on it are a little different from most people. The American identity, I think, is not something you can really sum up with like a few words. There's a stereotypical like apple pie, church on Sundays, flag in the front yard kind of American identity. Personally, I don't really fit with that. My upbringing, although I did get a little bit of that with my dad and kind of exposed to it through the white side of my family, I definitely had a lot of different experiences getting in touch with my Japanese side. I was raised, in a Japanese household, more or less. My mom and I spoke Japanese predominantly. I would eat Japanese food for most of my meals, and I guess the values and ethics I was brought up on are very Japanese as well. I feel like the question of identity really changes based on generations, or the American identity, I should say. Whereas the American identity for people my age today is, it's much more abstract than how it was. Getting back to the whole thing about, the atomic white family goes to church on Sundays, all that stuff. That I feel like that is a bit of an outdated American identity that a lot of people my age currently don't really fit to begin with. In terms of what modern kids in America, well, kids, young adults, whatever, what they fit into is more of what I align with, whereas the traditional idea of an American identity is something I don't align with.
Is it on?
It's on, yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Parodag Bovi, and I am 24 years old, and I'm a psychologist from East Lansing, Michigan. Webster's definition of an American is like, the standard American dream. You have certain freedoms that supposedly everyone is afforded. You have the same opportunities as everyone else, and you have independence. Just overall freedom to do what you like. But that's not the definition of what it means to be an American that I personally believe.
So, what is your personal take on it?
Well, there are distinctive American identities. For instance, my status is that of a Black American. So I could say do I personally have the ability to do whatever I want as a Black American? That's no, obviously, because there's discrimination in the workplace, or discrimination in education, and even discrimination in housing, and we just overall aren't afforded to have equal opportunities, or even the same social standing as white people, and specifically white males are. If you want to say, there is like this American ideal, well, white people are the American ideal. They are able to take on any job that they want, move into any neighborhood and everybody looks like them. They're just afforded privileges that, minorities are not afforded. My own identity would not fit into what the standard, definition of an American would be. The standard definition of American is like someone who works a 9 to 5. They have a wife and 2 children. They have a car. They live in a relatively middle class neighborhood. I mean, if we want to get reductive, all an American has to be is someone who lives in America and they are a natural born citizen. That's the most reductive way of saying that, oh, this person is an American. But there's a lot more nuance than that. If there was one distinctive American identity, then we wouldn't have terms like African American or Asian American or Indian American. They would all just simply be Americans. People who basically just live in America, whether you're an immigrant or not, or illegal or not, anyone who's just present in America in the ideal would be an American. But that's not the way our society obviously works.
Are you recording?
I am, yeah.
My name is Grant. I am 19 years old and I'm a student. And I grew up in Lansing most of my life, but I've had experiences outside of the country with living in Ukraine for 2 years and, traveling around Europe, went to Japan. The main thing that stands out about America to me is perhaps a cliche, but it is the freedom that you are allowed to have, especially in, freedom of expression. You are able to, present yourself pretty much however you want with about the least amount of societal stigma that is possible. In other places, there are more ingrained societal and cultural norms because of, the homogenous society. There's positives and negatives of that, but if you're in America, you are allowed to, to the fullest extent of the law and society, express what you want to express. And you're allowed to own firearms, where in most of the world, or most of the developed world, it's not legal, at least to the extent that it is in America. You are allowed to have freedom of speech, whereas even in our neighbors in Canada, there are stipulations to that. And of course, there are, stipulations to the First Amendment in America, but I think that we have, on paper, some of the greatest amounts of freedom.
My name is Jake. I was born in Lansing. I've lived in Lansing for 17 years. I'm 18 years old. I've been living here my entire life, basically, in the same house. I would say the greatest thing that has affected my life, or like the way that I view America, is probably how relaxed everybody is comparatively to what I hear about other countries. Like, you can get away with doing a lot of things that would probably not be considered societal norms without, in many cases, people blinking an eye or saying anything to you. Like, the greatest thing about America is that you can really do whatever you want that's inside of the law without having anyone say really anything about it, unless you're doing it for evil intent.
Hi, my name is Dominic. I'm 18 years old and I'm from Lansing, Michigan. I've lived here my whole entire life, and what America really means to me and what stood out to me is basically like the vast amount of opportunities it provides for the people. Compared to like other countries, I feel like there is low societal pressure for the people inside of America, but there's also way more opportunity for people in America to do what they want and to basically like live their own life, independent life. They can do what they want pretty much at any time. It's a land of second chances.
I think there are a set of American values that are favored and have been favored in America, such as people who have an adventurous spirit. The first people here were like, okay, let's go to this new land and settle it, you know? And then it was like, okay, let's move out west. The government says that they'll give us land if we go move there and plant crops. So it's like, you know, America values people who are entrepreneurs. And that's, you know, one of the main reasons why, you know, for the benefit or drawback of the world, why most transnational corporations have come out of America. There's sort of a neo-colonialist spirit through capitalism that allowed America to first, after World War II, establish free trade for the entire world, and then, you know, set up these mega conglomerates that are now in, you know, all of the world for the positive or negative, but that's something that has sort of allowed America to become, and you might say that they're a falling superpower now, but sort of stay in the limelight for 100 plus years.
I think that, like, identity-wise, I don't think Americans really have, like, one single identity that you could formulate themselves in. They kind of have, like, the same, like, beliefs and ideals and values that we all kind of, like, collectively share, because America's so diverse, but, like, those values would be try to be, like, a nice person, a good neighbor, provide something to the society as a whole.
So those traits you think are what makes Americans American?
I'd say, yeah, to a certain extent, you know. Do you think there's many places besides America where, like, the dream of, you know, becoming rich and
I
powerful
think that
is, like, that's actually, you know,
the
possible.
easiest place in the world for me, I would say, to become a uber rich person would be an American. I mean, you see so many other people from other cultures who have these ideas, and they're like, I can't stay in this country if I want to become like this. This is such a good idea. I'm going to go to America and go through my fruitions to make this achievable. I mean,
Well, I think that if, you know, if a lot of people in, like, different places in different, like, countries had those, like, ideas and, you know, thoughts and put them to action, like, the best place to do it would be America.
right, and that's why you see a lot of diversity in America, I would say, in the last 50 years. That could be a big part of it. I mean, like, you see people coming from India is a great example, China's a good example. People who come to America to start their companies, and then maybe they'll go back to their home country to just live their life, because maybe they don't see America as living the greatest life for their culture or their ideals, but they just maybe think that America is the easiest place to succeed. And I think that America is easily one of the easiest places to succeed if you are willing to put in the hard work. I think there's also a lot of easy things to do in America comparatively to other places, like just live a good life. The majority of countries out there is not going to be living a good life comparatively to what people see a good life in America. I think that there's definitely things that are overlooked, especially for me, and I think I have a privilege that I'm white and working class, but I think there is definitely a minority of people in America that are set to, because of the way that they were born, have a harder chance at succeeding. But I think that is so much lower comparatively to, like, if you're Muslim in Sweden, you know, and comparatively to being a Muslim in America. I feel like even then you have a way greater chance of succeeding in America. Or if you're black in Ukraine, you're gonna probably not have a good chance of succeeding because people are they just see you as so different. But like a black person in America, maybe he's born into a rougher neighborhood that is policed more and people are out to get him more, but it's just like, if you work hard and you stay out of trouble, like you just have a higher chance of succeeding than other places.
I'm Hiroko.
Yeah.
People call me Hiro. I'm 21 years old, and I'm basically an international student from Japan. And I go to college. I'm about to graduate, but I study speech communication and psychology, and I'm doing human community service right now. When I was back in Japan, when I was baby, a year old, this American family used to live in my hometown called Otsu, Shiga. They lived in Japan, and then my mom speaks English, and we met back in my hometown, and we became super good friends, and we just kept in touch forever. And my family and that American family did back and forth of traveling Michigan and Japan here and there. I came here as an exchange student when I was high school. I decided not to go to college in Japan, and I moved basically into that American family, and I lived with them for my first year, and then ever since I've been here in Michigan. As a Japanese, straight up Japanese person, being American means probably getting this shit in my nose, wearing leggings outside, being super friendly to people who I just meet, carrying some small conversation at the grocery shopping, hugging people.
Do you think those things are American because you don't do those things?
Exactly. So those things are the things that I saw in American people. I saw American people doing. And I think that's the things that I kind of adapted. I was like, okay, those things are accepted in this society, in this culture. And I just started doing that, things like that. And those like little things are things I think Americans wearing slippers, not slippers. What's the thing? What's this thing called? There's a word for it.
Flip flops.
Yeah, flip flops to grocery store, or going out without makeup and stuff like that. That's what it means to be American. The main reason that I came here is that I did not want to go to college in Japan. To me, it seemed like a lot of people graduate high school and automatically go to universities, colleges, without having specific goals, which I still don't have. I think there's a big path that a lot of people follow without really thinking, because that is just the societal norm. What everybody else does, I guess I'll have to do it. And I did not like that, and I started seeing that the mainstream, like the culture of following mainstream. So I was like, I'm just gonna do something different. I'm going, let's go. New country. I've been there before. I liked it. It was just a month, and I moved here type of stuff. People see hope and possibilities in America, and people try to follow that. And I do think it exists. I made a lot of different friends in terms of like race, religion, diversity, diverse friends through LCC life that I had 3 years, and I met a lot of people who moved here like as immigrants or refugees, and I've seen people taking classes, English classes, ESL classes, to get a degree, to have a job, and to have a better life, better quality of life. And I think I've met many people who are seeking for a better quality of life than they had back home, wherever their home was. So I think seeing that, makes me say that. Sometimes my personal experience with foreign countries, like living here, this is my 4th year living here, so I've been living here like 3.5 years now, and I grew up in Japan. I was there for 18 years, and everything I see, everything was evolving around Japanese culture, Japanese people, what I ate, what I knew. I didn't necessarily think that was everything, but what I knew was basically pretty much everything that built me. But since I hadn't gone to other countries, other places, or like places that has a whole different country. When I moved, I realized how much of a closed environment I was in, and I didn't know that until I moved. And then I visited the family who lived in Ukraine, where I do not know the language. Just things are different. That Ukraine itself, the country, was a part of Russia like 30 years ago, and that's very new as a country. The buildings, architecture is very different. It's just very different from US too. And people seem very just different from US. I've only been to Canada, Ukraine, America, and Japan. But I think when people are like America is the greatest country, America has the most freedom, most opportunity, when people say things like that, I just think, what have you seen though? I've only been to 4 different countries, and only 4, and I know there's so much out there I just don't even know, that I will not know, and I will die without knowing all the things, and I know that. And that's what makes me think, well, have you gone outside of the country though? There's so much more that you don't even know. But people just think differently, just culture is differently, language is different. When people get caught up with, not like America is the greatest country, but that idea is only based on what you know, what you've seen. I'm not trying to say anything negative about it, but I just think there's so much out there, so much more out there, and sometimes people kind of become less aware of the fact and push what they know, what their beliefs are, what they believe in. And I think it's the same way with like a lot of different people in different countries, because it's just so hard to be aware of a lot of things, because it's impossible, geographically, culturally, linguistically. But that's how I feel.
Hi, I'm Kali Majumdar. My full name is Krishna Kali Majumdar. I'm from India. I was born in 1963. That makes me almost 58 years old. I guess I'm a professor.
A professor of?
Anthropology. So when I was growing up in India, I remember we had this word called cat. You're such a cat. And that meant cool American teenager. Wearing Levi's, a t-shirt, casual, things that were not stuffy compared to British, like British was seen as very stuffy with proper manners on the dining table and proper ways to talk, whereas in what America meant to me was that you could be who you want to be. There were not too many regulations and there were not too many rules. And so to me, America meant cool. And then when I came here, I was really treated very well for the first year, and I call it the honeymoon period when you go to another culture. And then I began to realize that even though I can speak in English, the words mean differently in this culture. And one of the first things that I struggled with was the concept of friends. What does friendship mean in this culture was very different than what I was used to. Not good or bad, but it's different. It seems that from my friend circle, I'm very close to them, but when I'm gone, I'm gone. There is no writing notes and letters and following up and phone calls. It's just gone. And then they're back, and it was like as if no time had passed. So that was kind of an interesting thing for me, and I saw myself changing too. That's one thing that I struggled with, was what it means to be a friend in this culture. In India, when you make friends, you make an effort to keep in touch. That doesn't mean that we were closer than I would be with a friend who doesn't keep in touch here. But it was interesting that in this culture, it's almost out of sight, out of mind. And then when you see them, as I said before, as if no time had passed. Whereas in India, you go through the whole, your months and days and years pass by, but there is documentation along the way because you've either called or written letters and things like that. Now that when I travel back to India and I go through airports, and you can always see who are the Americans. It's just their habitus, their body is, it just shows the way they carry themselves. It's not like they're taking up physical space, but it seems like they're taking up space. I don't feel safe here. I feel a lot safer in India. I could take on a police guy in India. I wouldn't dare do that here. It just feels not your space, so you feel like you shouldn't ruffle any feathers here. Whereas in India, I don't feel that way. And so when people tell me, oh, don't you have more freedom? I'm like, no, I don't feel free to say a lot of things. And I just don't feel I can speak my mind. Like in India, it's the worst thing. So they'll say, why do you look like that? Look at your dark circles. Like in this culture, you would never say that to anybody. They're much more forward and brazen about those things. I don't feel that I can say anything negative about anybody.
Because you feel like people will be sensitive to it or get hurt easily by it, and they won't understand that you don't mean it in the way they're interpreting it, right?
So it's kind of, I'm branded difficult. I think American dream does not exist for people that live here, but it is a pull factor for people around the world. They see how cool America is. They have cool stuff. They come up with cool stuff. But once you come here, you realize that that's not so for people that live here. There's a lot of poverty. There's lots of inequality. The people that come here are people that are go-getters. These are not people that are just, I don't know, do I need to do any work? It's not, those are not the people that are coming here. Now that I teach at LCC, I see how much harder it is for people to really, really go somewhere.
So some people say that America is the land of opportunity, which kind of goes with the idea of the American dream. Did you see America as a place of opportunity for you? Better.
I was planning to go back anyway.
Would you say that that statement, though, is true now after living in America, that it is a place for opportunity?
I see less and less. Because I have seen with my own eyes the middle class shrinking in the past 30 years.
So you're saying there's definitely now equal opportunity for everyone here.
I don't feel that.
Yeah, that was basically all I needed.